This is the video jump measurement system tutorial on operation using the latest release of Bob Corson's video software, done by Jim Thompson and Floyd McCride in fall of 2012. It's called a 30-second exercise in excellent. Now the video will take longer than 30 seconds, quite a bit longer, but what that refers to is that you have 30 seconds as an operator from the time the jumper lands until the time when we need to get his distance back out to the boat communicated to the jumper. So during those 30 seconds, we need to demonstrate excellence. And this will teach you how. By the end of this tutorial, hopefully you'll have enough knowledge to at least feel comfortable going into a situation as an operator and perform competently. We are assuming that, as is the case in most tournaments, that when you get there, the video system is already set up. The cameras, the grid buoys, the computer itself have been properly set up and calibrated and verified by the technical people at the tournament. So you're ready to sit down and start judging jumpers. So what we will do as we move forward here, we're going to start out with just a couple of slides to demonstrate how the system works, and then we'll get into specific how-tos that you as an operator will need to do. Of course, we're not going to begin to teach everything that the system does, but hopefully you'll be ready to serve as an operator at a water ski tournament. What we have here is a diagram, if you will, looking straight down. If you were hovering in a helicopter directly above the jump landing area, that's what this depicts. On the right side here, you see the cameras. Typically, you have two cameras. They're normally mounted on two different poles, or they can be on the same pole. You see it either way. It is not imperative that they're on the same pole. It is not imperative that they're the same height. What they will have is they will be calibrated. That's what this represents, and you'll see this throughout the software. These are XY coordinates. We have basically mapped the entire jump area with a system of XY coordinates, and that's what these refer to. They're in meters. So these are the grid buoys right here. This grid buoy, for example, has been calibrated at coordinate 4219, and that is a calibration, or grid buoys is what they're normally called. So the next thing, let's look at this purple line here is the line of sight, and that's the critical measurement that we're looking for. The camera will have what you as an operator are going to do is define the line of sight between the camera, the proper camera, and this point right here, which is the point that we're going to measure that represents the jumper's landing point. So you will capture this on video, and then using the following slides, you will tell the computer exactly where this is. Let's talk about grid 1 and grid 2, or sometimes it's called grid A and grid B. Sometimes it's called long grid or short grid. So in this example right here, with the jump being down here, this would be, this area right here, in this kind of V-shaped area, would be the short grid, or maybe grid 1, depending on what it's called. And this is the area that's been calibrated by the technical setup operation to be qualified to measure jumps within this area right here. Likewise, the long grid, or grid 2, would be this one right here, the longer grid. You'll notice there is some overlap right here, where either grid 1 or grid 2 could be used, depending on which one would produce the better result. As an operator, you will have to determine and define which grid to use, grid 1 or grid 2, and that's a function of how far the jumper is expected to jump. If you know that you have a plopper who's going to be in this area in here, then you can focus all of your attention to grid 1, the short grid. Likewise, similarly, you make the same decision for grid 2. You will start on this screen, we call it the opening view. The first thing you'll want to do here when you sit down is enter the jumper's name in this box right here. So you'll tab to this location, type in the jumper's name, perhaps his round is a good idea, and then tab to the next box, and always put attempt number 1. It is important to do this every time you switch jumpers, because if you don't, it will overload the system with too much, and you could possibly cause the system to crash. The next thing, it's a good idea, always check this length of time to record. Make sure that it is set on 4.0. That's a good one to use. Then tab 3 times, or as many times as you need to get to where this box right here, start recording, is highlighted. This is a very, very important trick. Probably the most common mistake that operators make is the jumper comes and they attempt to start recording, but they're not at the right place. If you're someplace other than right here and you hit enter or click, you will not start recording and possibly cause the jumper to receive a mandatory rewrite because you had no video on the jump. So probably one of the very most important things you want to do is make sure that you tab till this box right here is highlighted. Then you are ready to restart recording the jumper as he approaches the jump. When you get tabbed to it, it will turn green as it's done right here in this. So now the next thing you have to do as the operator is hit enter, which will actually start the camera recording. When do you hit enter? Well, that depends on what kind of jumper you've got. If you've got a beginning jumper who's just plopping over, then you can hit it before the jumper it actually even makes it to the jump, because you've got 4 seconds of recording. So on a beginning jumper, you might hit enter when they're 20, 30 feet away from the jump. For an intermediate typical jumper, and kind of your default on this is when the jumper hits the bottom of the ramp, hit enter. That will start recording from this screen right here. Now on an advanced jumper, because they've got a lot of air time, it's not necessarily, you might even wait till they're off the ramp before you hit it. Keep in mind that as an alternative to hitting enter, it is also possible to hover the mouse over this green button, as I've done right here, and click it at that point. That's not really recommended though. A better way to do it is to simply hit enter. The reason that it's not recommended is because when you're working with the mouse like this, it's very easy to move off it or hit it prematurely by accident, and problems can happen. A very important point is when you're staring at the computer screen, the only thing that you will see is the camera's view of the landing area. So it's important that you look out a window or somehow can have a hint at when the boat is approaching. There's all kinds of ways to do it. Look out a window. If that's not possible, have somebody else announce a jumper approaching. I've even seen it done where the boat judge will sometimes call in, jumper coming. But it's important to have some other visual clue as to when the jumper is approaching so that you don't miss him. They will go by this very quickly if you're just looking at this. So now the jumper has hit the ramp. We've hit start recording. Now the camera is recording, the computer is recording, and the next button that will automatically highlight will be this green contact. That refers to contact of the jumper hitting the water. So what you want to do is, as the operator, hit enter a second time just after the jumper lands. That sets the contact, and